Carrying the stars, a gentle road home to the family I hold dear. Chapter 1, The Departure. When I stepped out of my small wooden door before dawn, the hinges creaked so softly I almost thought they were whispering goodbye. The air outside was still and waiting, like a shallow lake that hadn't yet decided to ripple. I stood for a moment, just breathing, feeling the old wood of the doorframe behind my back, steady and warm from the nights it had guarded my family's dreams. My shoes sank slightly into the damp grass. Each blade bent under my soles and held the shape of my step for a heartbeat before rising again to erase any sign I had passed. I liked that. I liked the idea that I could slip away quietly, that the earth would close its skin around my footprints and keep my leaving a secret. Inside, behind the thin walls, my family still slept. I pictured them, my daughter curled up under her blue blanket, the one with the stars stitched into the corners where my clumsy fingers had tried their best. My partner's quiet breathing, a small soft rhythm that had become the background music to every night I spent at home. I held that sound in my chest like a small lantern, warming me from the inside as I stepped away from the house and into the waiting dark. The road that waited was not really a road. It was more like an old thought, half forgotten by everyone but the wind and the wildflowers. It stretched out across the fields in a line of slightly flatter grass, the faint suggestion of steps taken by those before me, each footfall pressing down stories that only the earth could remember. I told myself I was not alone, not really. Every traveler leaves a piece behind for the next to find, a whisper of courage tucked into the soft hush of early morning. My bag was not heavy, but it felt like a promise. Inside were simple things, a crust of bread wrapped in cloth, a handful of dried berries, a tin cup for river water. And tucked deep in my pocket, a piece of that blue blanket, a torn corner I had carried for years. It was frayed at the edges where tiny fingers once tugged at it while drifting away into dreams. When my hand brushed against it, I felt my daughter's warmth, her small weight leaning into me on nights when the wind rattled the roof and we both pretended not to be awake. I did not say goodbye. The word stuck in my throat when I stood at the door. It felt too final, too sharp. So instead, I let my silence speak for me. I left my thoughts behind in the warmth of the kitchen, the smell of tea leaves still lingering in the wooden cupboards. I let them stay there, so the house would not be empty when they woke. As I walked, the sky began its slow turning from black to a hesitant blue. The first threads of light caught on the tips of the grass, turning dew into tiny beads of gold that clung to my trousers as I brushed past. A bird called out once from somewhere I couldn't see. Its voice was so small and clear that it felt like an answer to a question I hadn't dared to ask. I paused at the edge of the field where the wildflowers took over. They were taller here, reaching for each other in the half-light, nodding their heads in a breeze so light it felt more like a breath than a wind. I ran my fingers over the petals, soft, damp, real. I wondered if flowers ever missed the ones who picked them. Maybe they, too, dreamed of roots that reached back home. In the distance, a line of trees waited. Beyond them lay the world I had promised myself I would cross. Not forever, just long enough. Long enough to gather what we needed: coin for firewood in the cold months, thread to patch holes in old shirts, shoes for a child who seemed to grow an inch every week. Each step I took felt like placing a stone in a river, making a path back home that would not wash away when the rain came. My thoughts wandered the same path over and over. I pictured the table where we ate, its surface worn smooth by elbows and laughter. I pictured the little shelf by the door where we kept our shoes, lined up like tired soldiers at the end of a long day. I pictured the bed where 3 bodies tangled under a single blanket on nights when the wind howled loud enough to make us gather close. Sometimes I think about staying. About turning back before the sun catches up with me, before the world knows I'm gone. I imagine slipping back under the covers, my coat still cold from the morning air, my hands curling around my daughter's small shoulders. But every time I reach that thought, I find myself pushing it aside. Love does not always mean staying close. Sometimes love means walking away with your arms wide open, gathering the world in your pockets and bringing it back home one coin at a time. The trees come closer with each step. Their trunks stand tall and patient, leaves whispering above like gossip passed from branch to branch. I reach the first one and rest my palm against its rough skin. The bark is cold but alive. It reminds me of the touch of the wooden table back home, the grain under my fingertips when I trace circles on it while waiting for tea to steep. A breeze lifts the edge of my coat. It slips under my collar and down my spine, a shiver that feels less like cold and more like a hand guiding me forward. The forest beyond the trees hums with hidden life. I close my eyes and listen. Somewhere, water runs over stones, a low murmur that sounds like my partner's voice when they tell me not to worry. Somewhere, a bird rustles its wings and settles deeper into its nest. Somewhere, the earth itself shifts in its sleep, making room for my steps. I take one last look over my shoulder. In the faint light, the shape of my home is just a darker shadow against the rising dawn. If I squint, I can almost see the warm glow of a lantern in the window, waiting for me to come home. I carry that glow inside my chest as I turn back to the path, lifting my feet one by one, pressing them into the hush of the waiting woods. I whisper to the trees, to the dawn, to the road, take care of them while I'm gone. Keep them warm. Hold their dreams safe until I come back with my pockets full of small, gentle miracles. And the road answers, not in words, but in the way the branches part for me, the way the wind hushes its breath, the way the morning lifts itself slowly, patiently, gently, carrying me forward. Chapter 2: The Forest of Gentle Lanterns. The trees gather themselves around me like old friends as I step deeper into their waiting hush. Each trunk stands like a pillar, bark rough but not unkind, their branches weaving a ceiling so high above that I feel smaller than a whisper drifting through a dream. The path is softer here, carpeted with last year's leaves, pressed flat by footsteps I cannot see but know must have passed this way, carrying stories like mine. I pause to listen. The forest hums, a low, steady murmur that seeps into my bones until my breath matches its rhythm. Somewhere far off, a bird calls out once, then falls silent again, as if it too has settled in to listen to the sound of the world breathing. My own footsteps hardly break the quiet. Each step sinks into the moss and leaf litter with a sigh that folds my presence back into the hush behind me. I lift my eyes to where stray shafts of sunlight slip through the canopy. They touch the air like careful fingers, stroking motes of dust that drift lazily in the half-light. There, in the pools of soft brightness, I begin to see them, small lanterns hanging from low branches. They sway gently, not from any breeze I can feel, but from some secret conversation passing from leaf to leaf. No two lanterns are alike. Some are made of glass so thin it seems to breathe with the forest, catching light and holding it like a secret. Others are shaped from folded paper, their edges soft with age, the color of old stories told beside hearth fires. Some look as if they grew here, tiny buds of light blossoming where branches meet. I reach for the nearest one, my fingertips brushing its warm glow. It hums under my touch, a faint vibration that slips into my skin and curls around my bones. I wonder who hung them here. Maybe no one. Maybe they appeared when the forest realized travelers needed reminders that darkness is never complete, that even the deepest shadows hold small kindnesses if you know where to look. I think of my daughter's small hands, cupped around the flame of a candle during stormy nights when the wind howled at our shutters. The way her eyes would widen at the flicker, half in fear, half in wonder. I walk on, letting the lanterns guide my steps. They appear at odd intervals, sometimes clustered close like friends gathered to share secrets, sometimes spaced so far apart that I find myself longing for the next small bloom of light. Between them, the darkness grows thicker, but never so thick that it frightens me. It feels instead like a blanket, heavy enough to remind me I am sheltered, even here among the trees. The forest floor rises and falls beneath my feet, gentle hills that catch the soles of my boots and whisper soft promises of springs hidden in their hollows. I stop at a small clearing where the lanterns hang in a ring around the edges, marking the space like a shrine. In the center, a stone sits, flat and round, its surface worn smooth by rain and waiting. I lower myself onto it, my bag sliding from my shoulder with a quiet thump against the moss. I sit for a long while, elbows on my knees, hands wrapped around the scrap of blue cloth in my pocket. I pull it free, smoothing it across my palm. The stitches are frayed, the stars coming undone at the edges, but when I press my thumb over them, I feel whole. I close my eyes and picture my daughter's breath puffing softly as she dreams. I picture my partner's hand resting on her back, a weight that says you are safe, you are loved, you are here. I feel my own breath slow, stretching longer between each rise and fall of my chest. The hush of the forest soaks into me, softening the knots in my shoulders, untangling the tightness that has lived in my throat since the moment I closed our door behind me. I imagine my family here beside me, each of us sitting on this old stone, heads leaning together as the lanterns sway overhead. When I open my eyes, the clearing looks different. The lanterns seem closer now, their light brushing my cheeks like warm hands. I wonder if the forest has leaned in to listen to my thoughts. I whisper a thank you, not to any one thing in particular, but to everything that has held me this far. The trees, the lanterns, the hidden springs that hum beneath my boots. I stand and lift my bag back onto my shoulder. The stone feels reluctant to let me go, its cool surface clinging to my palms for a heartbeat longer than it needs to. I take that as a blessing, a soft push onward rather than an anchor to hold me still. I step out of the circle of light and back onto the path that winds deeper into the waiting dark. The lanterns thin out the further I go. Soon they appear only here and there, flickers caught in the corner of my eye rather than steady beacons. I do not mind. By now, the hush has settled so deep into my bones that I feel as if I carry a lantern inside my chest, its flame fed by every breath I draw. I pause where the path splits in two, one fork dipping down into a gully where shadows gather thick as fog, the other climbing a low rise that catches the last scraps of daylight filtering through the canopy. I stand between them for a long while, listening to the forest's slow heartbeat, waiting for some small sign to tell me which way to go. A single leaf drifts down from the branches above, landing at my feet with a sound softer than a sigh. It sits on the path that climbs upward, its veins catching the faint glow of the nearest lantern. I take that as my answer. I press the scrap of blanket to my lips one last time before tucking it back into my pocket. I start up the rise, boots sinking into the loamy earth, the hush folding around me like a cloak. Each step feels like a promise, a small offering laid at the feet of the miles yet to come. I know I will walk until the hush lifts, until the forest breathes me out into the open again. And even then, I will carry this quiet with me, a lantern behind my ribs, lighting the road home. The higher I climb, the lighter the air feels. The branches thin overhead until the sky shows through in ragged patches, a patchwork of deepening blue stitched together with the first shy stars. I pause at the top, turning to look back. The forest spreads below me like a sleeping giant, lanterns blinking here and there like gentle eyes half open in the dusk. I imagine my family looking up at the same sky, perhaps standing by our small window, hands resting on the sill. I like to think they feel me there in the hush between their heartbeats, my footsteps brushing through the wild grass, my breath carrying my love back home with every mile I put behind me. I stand there until the chill settles into my collar, nudging me forward. I gather the hush around my shoulders like a blanket, stepping back onto the path as the night folds itself over the world like a soft, endless dream. Chapter 3: The Bridge of Murmurs. The path down from the rise curls gently, like a ribbon dropped across a pillow. Each step feels softer than the last, the earth giving just enough under my boots to remind me that this road, too, is alive. Shadows gather at the edges of my sight, but they do not press close. Instead, they drift like old friends who know when to keep a respectful distance. Ahead, I hear the first hush of water, a sound so gentle I almost mistake it for my own thoughts. It weaves through the trees, slipping over roots and stones, gathering itself in a low murmur that promises company without asking for anything in return. I follow it the way I follow my own breath, slow and steady, a reminder that I am still moving forward, even when the world feels like it's standing still. When the trees part, the river appears, broad and silver under the growing moonlight, its surface catching the sky's soft lanterns and carrying them away in drifting fragments. A wooden bridge arches over it, old but unbowed, its beams dark with age and damp from the mist that rises where the current runs fast. The bridge has no railings, just a line of small posts set at intervals, each one capped with a bell. They are tiny, no larger than my cupped hands, and each one sways gently, whispering its thin, bright note when the wind finds it. I pause at the foot of the bridge, listening. The bells do not ring loud enough to wake anyone, only enough to remind me that this crossing is watched over by something patient and kind. I place my foot on the first plank. It creaks under my weight but holds firm. The first bell closest to me trembles, letting out a note so clear and soft it reminds me of my daughter's laugh when she was too tired to keep her eyes open but too stubborn to drift away just yet. I smile at the memory, pressing my palm flat against the post as if to thank it for the sound. As I step forward, each bell sings in turn, their notes weaving around my footsteps until it feels like I am walking inside a song. The river below hums in answer, its voice deeper but no less gentle. I pause halfway across and look down into the water. The current folds the moonlight into itself, stretching it into ribbons that twist and vanish beneath the bridge. I think of the things the river must carry, leaves fallen from trees that stand too far to see, twigs and blossoms drifting from upstream places I will never walk. I wonder if my thoughts might ride that current too, slipping under this bridge to find their way home before I do. I imagine my daughter waking in the night to the faint sound of water somewhere far away, her small hands curling around her blanket as she turns over, safe in the hush of our small cottage. The bells hush themselves when I stand still, their song fading into the river's murmur. I rest my elbows on one of the posts, letting my bag slide off my shoulder to rest at my feet. The wood beneath my arms is rough, worn smooth in places by other travelers who paused here as I do now. I like to think they were also thinking of home, of warm hands waiting to pull them close when the miles were finally done. I close my eyes. For a moment, the river's song is all I hear. I let my thoughts drift with it, imagining them slipping over stones slick with moss, brushing past roots that reach down like thirsty fingers. I see them arriving at my doorstep, slipping under the door to curl around my family like a soft breath of warmth. When I open my eyes, the river's mist has thickened, drifting over the planks of the bridge in lazy ribbons that wrap around my boots. I breathe it in, cool, damp, carrying the sharp green scent of moss and hidden springs. It fills my lungs with something clean and old, something that reminds me that every mile I put behind me brings me closer to where I began. I lift my bag again, settling its weight against my spine. The bells stir, ringing soft notes of farewell as I cross the rest of the bridge. On the far side, the path picks up again, lined with stones that catch the moonlight like crumbs dropped to guide me onward. I pause once more at the end of the bridge, turning to look back. The bells shimmer in the mist, their small bodies swaying like fireflies caught in a breeze I can't feel. I raise my hand, as if they might see it, and whisper my thanks into the hush. Beyond the bridge, the path curves along the riverbank for a while before drifting off into the low hills that wait ahead. The grass here grows thick and soft, brushing against my knees as I pass. Fireflies gather at its edges, tiny lanterns blinking on and off in a silent conversation I am not meant to hear. I stop near an old tree whose roots knot themselves into the bank, dipping into the river's edge as if to drink. Its branches reach out over the water, draped with strands of moss that sway like the bells on the bridge. I slip my hand into my pocket, brushing my thumb over the scrap of blue cloth. I imagine my daughter's voice here, gentle and half lost in the hush, asking me where I am, when I will come home. I answer her with my breath, with the steady beat of my heart under my ribs. Soon, little star, soon. I am gathering the miles and folding them up, one by one, like clothes in a travel bag. When they are small enough, I will bring them back to you. I sit beneath the tree for a while, letting the river's song curl around my ankles, feeling the ground's slow heartbeat under my palms. The mist drifts closer, wrapping around my shoulders like a shawl. I close my eyes and let myself drift, thoughts folding and unfolding like the petals of a flower that only opens when the world is too quiet to notice. When I wake, the moon has climbed higher, painting the river in silver ribbons that slip through my fingers when I reach for them. I stand, stretching the stiffness from my legs, my bag slung once more over my shoulder. The tree creaks softly as if to wish me well. I pat its trunk, pressing my thanks into the rough bark. The path rises away from the river now, carrying me toward the hills that wait beyond the hush of the water. I walk slowly, each step unhurried, each breath measured like a promise. The bells on the bridge fade behind me, their song carried on the wind until it becomes just another memory I tuck beside the scrap of cloth, safe in my pocket where my family's warmth waits for me to come home. Chapter 4: The Meadow of Whispering Grass. The path leads me up from the hush of the river and into a wide, open meadow that greets me like a held breath let out slow. The grass here grows tall, shoulder-high in places, swaying in waves that catch the moonlight and break it into shards that drift and settle like tiny stars among the stalks. I pause at the edge where the last trees stand guard, trunks dark and silent behind me. The meadow ahead seems to hum with its own quiet voice, a language made of rustling blades and the soft hush of the wind weaving secrets from one blade to the next. I step forward, and the grass parts around my legs like water. Each step is slow. The grass brushes my fingertips when I lift my hand, its slender bodies bending then springing back, never breaking. It feels alive, more alive than the forest behind, more alive than the river that slips away into the night. Here, every stalk feels like 1,000 small whispers waiting for me to lean in close enough to hear. I stop in the center of the meadow, where the grass grows so thick I can barely see my boots. I sink down to my knees, pushing the blades aside until I carve out a small hollow, a nest cradled by green. The earth beneath is warm, holding the day's heat like an old secret. I sit cross-legged and close my eyes. I hear it then. The grass speaks, not in words but in the slow hush of stems brushing stems, a shiver of life that runs through the field like a single thought passed from root to root. If I listen closely, I can almost imagine it telling me stories of all who have sat here before me, farmers resting with soil under their nails, children hiding from chores, travelers like me letting the road slip off their shoulders for a moment of hush. I slip my hand into my pocket and draw out the scrap of blanket. The stars stitched there catch the faint silver of the moon, threads frayed but holding fast. I run my thumb along the edge, tracing the stitches my clumsy fingers made so long ago. Each loop feels like a heartbeat, each knot a breath held and let go again. I press the cloth to my lips and think of my family, two shapes curled under this same sky miles away, safe in the hush I left behind for them. I imagine my daughter's hair spread across her pillow, her small chest rising and falling in a rhythm that matches mine even now. I picture my partner's hand resting over hers, an anchor holding all our drifting dreams in place. The grass leans in as if to listen. I whisper to it the same wish I've whispered to every tree, every river, every stone that held my steps: keep them warm. Keep them safe. Hold them gently until I can lay this road down at their feet. The wind sighs through the stalks, carrying my promise deeper into the hush. I lie back then, letting the grass cradle my shoulders, my head, my feet. The blades bend but do not break, weaving themselves into a soft bed that smells of earth and growing things. Above me, the sky opens wide, more stars now, scattered thick as seeds across black soil. I watch them flicker. Some seem to drift closer, sinking down through the dark like lanterns released from unseen hands. I reach up but do not touch them, just let my fingers hover in the cool air, tracing the shape of each tiny light before it blurs and folds back into the endless night. Time slips here. It pools around my ears like slow water, carrying the steady hum of the meadow deeper into my bones. I breathe it in, green and warm, alive and patient. My eyelids grow heavy, my thoughts drift in soft loops, circling the same quiet truths over and over until they feel as familiar as my own name. I think of the table back home, wood worn smooth by elbows and laughter. I think of the soft clink of cups, the hush of feet moving across creaking floors, the low hum of a voice reading stories by candlelight. I gather these thoughts like wildflowers, tucking them into the hollow of my chest where the hush lives now. Somewhere, an owl calls, low and patient from the edge of the trees. The meadow sighs in answer, the grass leaning as if bowing to a friend. I wonder if the owl sees me here, another small shape tucked into the hush, carrying the weight of love like a lantern held tight against the night. I close my eyes and drift for a while. In my mind, I walk the edges of this field, trailing my fingers through the whispering blades, letting them tell me all they know. They speak of rain and sun, of roots that reach deep enough to hold memories the wind cannot carry away. They speak of seeds buried and waiting, of blooms that open only for those who listen long enough to hear their names. When I open my eyes again, the sky has shifted. The stars will overhead, sliding along paths older than any road I could ever walk. I push myself up, the grass reluctant to release me, its blades clinging to my sleeves and hair as if to say, "Stay. Rest. Let the hush hold you a little longer." but the road waits. The promise in my pocket hums against my palm. I stand slowly, brushing the clinging grass from my coat, feeling it whisper along my skin one last time before letting me go. I slip the scrap of blanket back into my pocket, safe where my heartbeat can remind it that home is never lost, only waiting. I step back onto the path that picks up at the far edge of the field. It is narrower here, half swallowed by grass that leans in close to watch me pass. My boots press soft shapes into the earth that the wind will smooth away by dawn. Behind me, the meadow folds itself shut like a page turned slow, its whispers trailing after me until they are just a hum in the back of my thoughts. Ahead, the path dips into a hollow where trees gather again, dark shapes stitched together by moonlight and drifting mist. I pause at the edge, looking back one last time. The meadow sways under the sky, endless and patient. I bow my head in thanks, stepping forward into the hush of leaves and the promise of more road waiting just beyond the next breath. Chapter 5: The Village of Lantern Windows. The trees gather around me once more, their branches arching overhead like the ribs of a quiet cathedral. My steps brush through the hush they hold between trunk and leaf, each footfall pressing the night a little deeper into the soil. Somewhere ahead, I sense the weight of stone and wood waiting, the shape of rooftops huddled close against the coming dawn. The path slopes downward, curling like a river's bend until it opens onto a clearing where the village waits. It is small, just a scattering of houses tucked into the folds of low hills. Smoke drifts from a handful of chimneys, pale threads rising into the dark to weave themselves into the drifting clouds. The roofs are thatched and sloped, as if bowing their heads under the weight of so many stories told in whispers behind shuttered windows. Each window glows with a lantern. Some flicker dimly, their oil burning low after a long night. Others shine brighter, throwing gentle pools of gold onto the worn dirt paths that snake between doorways. Together, they make the village look like a handful of stars gathered close to the earth, too tired to keep to the sky. I pause at the edge, half hidden by a low stone wall draped in moss. I stand there a while, listening. The village hums with a hush all its own, doors creaking under the push of wind, floorboards sighing as someone turns in their sleep. Now and then, a soft voice drifts through a crack in the night, too quiet to catch but warm enough to feel. I slip through the gate and let the lantern windows guide me. My boots brush over worn stones, my breath drifting ahead of me in pale threads. No one steps outside to greet me, but I do not feel unwelcome. This place feels like it holds a space for travelers like me, those who pass through with empty pockets and full hearts, leaving only footprints and quiet wishes behind. At the village center, a fountain stands, a shallow bowl of stone fed by a trickle of water that hums over mossy lips. A bench sits nearby under an old willow tree whose branches dip low, trailing their tips in the pool. I lower myself onto the bench and shrug my bag from my shoulders, letting it rest at my feet. My bones sigh with the relief of being still. The lanterns glow in the windows around the square, each one a small heartbeat pulsing in the hush. I pull the scrap of blue blanket from my pocket and lay it across my knee. By the light of the nearest window, I trace the stitches, stars coming loose at the corners, threads frayed by countless nights of small hands tugging them close. I imagine my family's cottage then, its door warped by time, its floor creaking under familiar feet. I picture the soft wash of lantern light through our one window, the same gold I see here in a dozen other windows. I wonder if they stand at that window now, eyes pressed to the glass, listening for the hush of my boots on the path that will bring me home. A breeze lifts the willow's branches. They sway like slow dancers, brushing my shoulders with a whisper too soft to carry words. I lean my head back and close my eyes. For a moment, the fountain's hush sounds like my partner's voice, telling me the day's small stories while our daughter sleeps between us, her breath warm against my arm. I drift in that space where thought and dream blur, my heart beats soft against the hush of the village square. I see myself arriving home, steps echoing on the worn boards, my bag slipping from my shoulder to the floor. I see my daughter running down the hallway, hair wild with sleep, arms flung wide. I see my partner's smile, the way it folds years into seconds, all the miles I've carried crumbling into nothing at the touch of their hand. A soft clink startles me from the drift. I open my eyes to see a small cat perched on the edge of the fountain, its fur a pale blur in the lantern glow. It blinks at me, tail curling around its paws. For a heartbeat, we watch each other, two shapes caught in the hush of a village that expects nothing more from us than to stay a while. I lift my hand slowly, palm up. The cat tips its head but does not move closer. It seems enough that we see each other, that we share this pool of quiet, this patch of light spilled from windows that hold the hush of other dreams. It blinks once more, then slips away, melting into the shadows between cottages. I pull the scrap of blanket to my lips, pressing it there for a moment before tucking it safe again. I stand, rolling my shoulders to settle the weight of my bag once more. The bench creaks in protest as I step away, its wood cold where my warmth lingers. I follow the path through the village, passing doorways where the lanterns burn steady behind curtained glass. I imagine the families inside, soft laughter, the hush of blankets drawn up under chins, the sigh of a kettle left to cool on the hearth. I leave a piece of myself in each window I pass, a small wish folded like paper and slipped into the cracks of warm wood and stone. At the far edge of the village, the path narrows again, stones giving way to packed earth softened by so many feet before mine. I pause at the last gate, fingers brushing over the rough iron latch. I turn back once more, taking in the scattered lanterns, the low roofs pressed close against the dark, the hush that holds it all together like an old lullaby. I bow my head, breathing out one last promise into the hush: keep your windows warm. Keep your doors gentle. Hold my thoughts here for a while, tucked safe in the hush of your soft light. Then I slip through the gate, the latch clicking shut behind me like a heartbeat. The hush gathers around my shoulders once more, the road unfolding at my feet like a blanket laid out under the stars. Chapter 6: The Hill of Returning Stars. Beyond the village gate, the road narrows to a soft ribbon of earth that winds its way up a gentle rise. It carries the hush of the lantern windows behind me like a breath I hold in my chest. Each step feels lighter now, though my bag still rests heavy on my shoulders. Perhaps it is not the weight of cloth and crusts that presses down, but the quiet promise I carry folded into the fabric of my coat. The air grows thinner as I climb, crisp and edged with the first hints of dawn not yet arrived. The moon lingers overhead, unwilling to yield its watch to the sun just yet. I tip my head back to greet it, my breath slipping past my lips in pale clouds that drift up to brush against its cool, patient light. The hill rises slowly, giving itself over to the hush one step at a time. Grass bends under my boots, wet with dew that catches moonlight and throws it back in tiny sparks. Here and there, wildflowers cluster close to the path, small bursts of white and pale yellow, petals folded tight against the chill. I trail my fingertips along their edges as I pass, feeling the soft brush of life that holds on even in the thin hush before morning. Halfway up, I pause to catch my breath. A lone tree stands just off the path, a crooked sentinel with branches that reach wide as if to catch every drifting star. Its trunk is thick, bark gnarled and silvered by age and wind. Beneath it, the grass gives way to a patch of bare earth, smoothed flat by countless feet, and the hush of travelers come to rest. I slip from the path and lower myself onto the ground, my back pressed to the trunk that hums under my shoulder blades. The tree feels warm despite the night air, its heart beating slow and steady in a language only the hush can carry. I lean into it, letting my own pulse settle to match its ancient patience. From here, the world falls away in soft curves, fields and woods draped in mist that pools in the low places like breath caught between dreams. Far off, I see the faint line of the river, silvered by the moon, carrying its quiet song away from the bridge of bells and onward to places I will not walk tonight. I draw the scrap of blue blanket from my pocket and lay it across my knee. I smooth the frayed corners, press my thumb to the loose stitches. In this hush, I let myself speak aloud, my voice low and steady, as if telling a story only the tree and the drifting stars can hear. I am coming home, I say. I carry each mile like a handful of coins, each step like a folded promise. I gather them all here in my hands, pressed tight against this cloth you tugged over your shoulders each night I could not stay. The tree creaks above me, its branches swaying to brush against the dark, scattering a few last leaves that drift down to settle in my lap. I tuck them into my pocket beside the blanket scrap, new promises to carry back, green reminders that nothing rooted ever leaves completely. When my breath has evened out again, I rise, pressing my palm flat against the trunk. The bark gives just enough under my touch, warm and rough. I whisper a thank you, feeling it slip into the hush that curls around my fingers and drifts up into the branches overhead. The last stretch of the path curves gently toward the hill's crown. I climb it slow, each step unhurried, each breath folded around the hush that holds the world in place. At the crest, the earth flattens into a small clearing, a circle worn smooth by wind and waiting. In its center, a single stone stands half buried, its surface dappled with lichen that catches the moonlight and glows pale and kind. I lower my bag beside the stone and rest my hands on its cold, solid face. I picture my family here, my daughter perched on the stone's edge, her small feet swinging in the hush, her laughter drifting across the field like a bell's soft song. I see my partner beside her, their hand pressed to her shoulder, eyes lifting to find mine under the hush of 1,000 returning stars. I sit cross-legged in the hush, letting the night wrap itself around my shoulders like an old blanket. I close my eyes and feel the stars lean close, brushing my hair, my eyelids, the soft curve of my shoulders. They whisper without sound, the same promise over and over: you are held. You are never far. Every step is a circle that folds you back into the place you began. I open my eyes to the sky overhead, wide and waiting, stitched with so many points of light I lose count before I reach 20. I trace their shapes with my fingertip, drawing lines between them until they spin stories across my palm. A house with a crooked chimney. A child curled beneath a blanket stitched with stars. A window left open just enough to let my breath slip inside. I rest my hand over my heart, feeling the hush settle deep behind my ribs. The miles I've carried gather there, pressing close like old friends at the threshold of a door. I tell them the same thing I tell myself: not much longer now. Hold on. Hold warm. Hold close. The night breathes around me, cool and endless. The wind brushes my cheek, gentle as a mother's hand smoothing hair from a sleeping brow. I lean into it, my eyelids growing heavy under the hush. Thoughts drift in and out, folding themselves around the stone, the tree down the hill, the river singing to itself far below. I drift with them, half here, half folded into the hush of a dream where the path carries me home in the softest way it knows how. I see my family's cottage again, door cracked open, warm light spilling across the worn boards, laughter soft and low as hands pull me inside. When my eyes open once more, the first edge of dawn has found me, thin and pale, a shy suggestion of light that touches the stone, my boots, the tips of my fingers. I rise slow, rolling my shoulders to gather the hush tight around my bones one last time. I lift my bag, slipping its strap over my shoulder, its weight familiar, steady, kind. I press my hand to the stone once more, then turn toward the path that slips down the far side of the hill. The stars overhead blink soft farewells, folding themselves into the brightening sky. The hush lifts, but not all at once. It stays tucked behind my ribs, stitched into the pocket where the scrap of blanket waits, where promises sleep folded safe until the door swings wide and the miles settle quiet at my feet. I breathe in the hush one last time, let it out slow. Then I take the first step down the hill, toward the river, the bridge, the meadow, the forest, the door left open just enough to let me in when I come home, arms wide, pockets full of gentle miles.